I want to invite you on a journey into the very heart of what we call justice. We often speak of truth as something clear, unwavering, easily found. But what if truth is buried under layers of assumption bias and the deafening silence of indifference? What if the very system designed to protect us inadvertently becomes a force that steals decades of a person's life? This isn't just a story about a crime. It's about the profound cost of human error, the resilience of the spirit, and the quiet revolution of science. Prepare to question everything you think you know about guilt and innocence, and consider how a single overlooked detail can ultimately redefine freedom itself. Join me as we peel back the layers of a deception that echoes even today. The air in Raleigh, North Carolina, 1983, hung thick with the sweet scent of honeysuckle promising an endless summer. For Jerome Jenkins, a shy, gentle 19-year-old, and his younger half-brother David Jenkins, just 15, life moved at a quieter rhythm. Jerome, with his sweet, almost childlike nature, loved to sketch intricate patterns, while David, a bit more reserved, was perpetually humming old Motown tunes, a bright light in their humble home. They were two boys with developmental disabilities often misunderstood by the world, yet fiercely loved by their mother, Ms. Evelyn Jenkins. Her dreams for them were simple but profound: a steady job, a safe home, perhaps families of their own. They were utterly unaware that the idyllic calm was about to be shattered. Then the world tilted. A brutal crime ripped through their quiet community, a senseless act of violence that ignited a wildfire of fear. The pressure on local law enforcement to find a culprit was immediate, intense, and suffocating. And as always, in times of such raw emotion, the vulnerable often become the easiest targets. Before Jerome and David could even comprehend what was happening, they were caught in that desperate dragnet. Picture a small, cold room. The hum of fluorescent lights too bright, too stark. Across the table from a bewildered, frightened Jerome and David sat two hardened detectives. This wasn't an interview. It was a psychological battle they were destined to lose. Imagine being told repeatedly that you did something unspeakable, that your own brother, your rock, your confidant had implicated you. The detectives wove a subtle web of implied threats and false promises, their voices at first calm, growing sharper. "Just tell us what we want to hear and you can go home." They urged, an insidious lure for two boys who just wanted the nightmare to end. For individuals like Jerome and David with their developmental disabilities, the desire to please, the difficulty understanding complex questions, their very suggestibility, it made them prime targets for coercive tactics. Their minds, designed for simple truths, struggled to grasp the manipulative currents flowing around them. As the door clicked shut, a cold, sickening realization washed over Jerome. He hadn't just talked. He'd woven a story that wasn't his, a terrifying narrative spun from exhaustion and fear. But how could he ever take it back? The chilling power of suggestion had done its work. By the time the door of that interrogation room closed, the truth had been twisted beyond recognition. Two innocent boys, their voices drowned out by the roar of injustice, were about to embark on a journey into a hell they never deserved. The shadow of doubt had fallen, not on the true perpetrator, but squarely on the Jenkins brothers, setting the stage for decades of unimaginable suffering. The clang of the prison cell door wasn't just an end. For Jerome Jenkins, it was the beginning of an eternity on death row. Imagine that. Every sunrise, a stark reminder of the sunset he might never see. The walls, the bars, the constant low hum of despair. It was a place designed to break spirits, to strip away dignity, day after agonizing day. Jerome, with his gentle nature, found himself trapped in this brutal, unforgiving world, his mind struggling to grasp a reality so far removed from the simple life he once knew. There were nights he would lie awake, staring at the concrete ceiling, the whispers of despair almost overwhelming. "What's the point?" a voice inside him would echo, tempting him to surrender. Meanwhile, David Jenkins, just a boy at 15, was thrust into a different kind of hell. Separated from his brother, his greatest protector, he navigated the treacherous waters of the general prison population. A child with the mind of a younger kid, he struggled to comprehend the unspoken rules, the brutal hierarchy of this adult world. Did his gentle, confused nature make him a target? Was he taken advantage of? The prison system designed for punishment was profoundly ill-equipped to handle the vulnerabilities of individuals like David, often leaving them isolated and exposed. Yet even through the concrete walls and razor wire, their bond remained unbroken. Letters smuggled notes, whispered prayers during rare monitored visits. These became their lifelines. A crumpled letter from his mother, worn thin from rereading, would reignite a tiny spark in Jerome. Their shared ordeal forged an unbreakable connection, a silent understanding that transcended their physical separation. They were two lost souls adrift in a sea of injustice, clinging to each other's memory for survival. Outside those unforgiving prison walls, their mother, Ms. Evelyn Jenkins, fought a battle all her own. Her love for her boys was a force of nature, an unwavering flame against a world that had written them off. She became a self-taught legal scholar, poring over dusty law books in the local library, cold-calling every lawyer who would listen, enduring countless slammed doors and patronizing dismissals. Each rejection was a fresh stab to the heart, but it only fueled her fire. She poured every ounce of her being into their fight, a living testament to maternal love and an almost supernatural resilience. This profound struggle, this unwavering belief in the face of overwhelming odds, is a narrative too familiar for Black families across America, where the swift judgment and dismissed voices can transform suspicion into conviction, particularly for those already on the fringes of society. In the darkest corners of despair, where everything is stripped away, the human spirit's refusal to surrender becomes its most potent weapon. It's a lesson learned not in textbooks, but in the echoing solitude of a prison cell, a testament to the fact that even when hope is a tiny, flickering ember, it can sustain a soul through unimaginable suffering. The Jenkins brothers' agonizing journey through this labyrinth was far from over, but a faint whisper from the future was about to emerge from an unexpected source. While Jerome Jenkins and David Jenkins languished in the abyss of incarceration, their appeals exhausted, the world outside was quietly undergoing a profound revolution. In labs across the country, a new, almost magical science was emerging: DNA forensics. This microscopic blueprint of life, once dismissed or unimaginable in the realm of criminal justice, was now becoming the ultimate truth-teller. It was a silent witness patiently waiting to be heard, carrying the undeniable evidence that could rewrite destinies. Years into their nightmare, a young, brilliant attorney named Maya Anderson stumbled upon the Jenkins brothers' case. Maya wasn't driven by fame or fortune. She was an idealist, perhaps forged in the fires of witnessing a similar injustice early in her career. For her, the Jenkins case wasn't just a file in a mountain of paperwork. It was a deeply personal crusade, a haunting question mark in the annals of injustice. She saw the glaring inconsistencies, the coerced confessions, and most importantly, the potential for a scientific miracle that could correct a profound wrong. But getting old evidence retested is rarely straightforward. It's a brutal, bureaucratic labyrinth of denials, delays, and a system notoriously reluctant to admit its own fallibility. Maya faced skepticism, indifference, and even outright obstruction from officials who saw no reason to revisit a closed case. Prosecutors worried about tarnishing their records, police about admitting error. Every phone call was met with a slammed door, every request with a weary sigh. Yet her resolve was unwavering. She knew deep in her gut that something was terribly wrong, and she refused to give up on Jerome and David even when many others had. Just when Maya thought she'd hit a dead end, a forgotten note in an old evidence log buried beneath layers of dust and bureaucracy mentioned a small, seemingly insignificant detail: a discarded cigarette butt found near the victim, initially dismissed as irrelevant. This tiny, trivial object had sat in an evidence locker for decades, waiting for its moment to speak. It was a fragment of truth preserved, holding the key. The tension during the wait for the DNA results was almost unbearable. For Maya, for Ms. Evelyn, whose heart had been on hold for 3 decades, and for Jerome and David, who dared not hope too much for fear of another crushing blow. Then the phone call came, a moment frozen in time. The DNA from that cigarette butt didn't match Jerome Jenkins or David Jenkins. It matched someone else entirely, someone already convicted of a similar horrific crime. In that single electrifying moment, 31 years of darkness began to crack, letting in the first blinding rays of truth. The whispers of science had finally roared, demanding to be heard. In the relentless pursuit of justice, sometimes the smallest, most overlooked details hold the greatest power, and sometimes science detached from human bias becomes the purest voice of truth. The courtroom hushed, every breath held captive. Then the words that echoed like thunder, a liberation decades overdue: motion to vacate granted. For Ms. Evelyn Jenkins, it was a tsunami of relief, 31 years of tears finally falling, a mother's unwavering prayer answered. For Jerome Jenkins and David Jenkins, it was a moment so profound, so long-awaited, it was almost too much to comprehend. 31 years of life stolen now, offered back in a single staggering declaration of innocence. Imagine that first breath of truly free air after 31 years. The overwhelming scent of fresh-cut grass, the blinding brilliance of unfiltered sunlight, the cacophony of a world that had sped on without them. It was pure, unadulterated exhilaration mixed with a profound, almost paralyzing disorientation. They were free, but what did freedom even mean after 3 decades behind bars? This is where the story takes a bittersweet turn. Freedom, however, isn't a magic wand. It doesn't instantly erase decades of trauma, doesn't mend the deep wounds inflicted by a wrongful conviction. For Jerome and David, it was a new kind of prison, a world they no longer recognized, haunted by ghosts of the past, and baffling in its modernity. Jerome stared at the smartphone in his hand, a tiny rectangle of bewildering light. How do you explain apps to someone who last saw a rotary phone? David, more restless, found the noise and pace of the modern world overwhelming, often seeking solace in the quiet corners of his old room, struggling to comprehend the simple tasks of daily life. The mental and emotional scars were deep, invisible to the eye, but heavy on the soul. They found that while the world celebrated their release, the whispers in their small town lingered. Not everyone believed. For some, the old labels stuck, making the simple act of grocery shopping or walking down the street an exercise in courage. Adding insult to injury, North Carolina at the time offered no automatic compensation for wrongful conviction. They were free, but financially they were starting from less than zero with decades of missed wages and opportunities. This harsh reality highlights a cruel paradox many exonerees face, declared innocent, yet still bearing the invisible scars of guilt, struggling to rebuild lives from ashes, often with little to no support for their profound physical and mental health needs. Yet amidst the struggle, a new purpose began to emerge. With the unwavering support of their family, especially Ms. Evelyn, and the relentless advocacy of Maya Anderson, Jerome and David slowly began to find their voices. Once silenced, those voices now became a powerful echo, speaking truth to power, advocating for the countless others still trapped in the labyrinth of injustice. Their journey revealed a crucial lesson. Freedom is not merely the absence of bars. It is the arduous journey of rebuilding, healing, and finding purpose in the face of profound loss. The true measure of justice is not just how we right wrongs, but how we support those we have wronged in their long, complex recovery. Their release was a victory, yes, but also a stark reminder of the long, challenging road ahead. The story of Jerome Jenkins and David Jenkins is far more than just a single case of wrongful conviction. It's a living, breathing cautionary tale that peels back the layers of systemic flaws within the American justice system. Their ordeal lays bare the dangers of unchecked power, the insidious impact of racial bias, and the terrifying fragility of truth when confronted with an eager-to-convict mentality. Their experience is a microcosm, a painful example of how deeply entrenched issues can devastate individual lives. Police misconduct and coercion. Jerome and David's interrogation exposed the chilling power of psychological manipulation, particularly on vulnerable individuals. This isn't just about bad apples. It's about the intense pressure on law enforcement to close cases, sometimes leading to tunnel vision, and an over-reliance on confessions, even false ones. Their story cries out for independent oversight and mandatory video recording of all interrogations, ensuring transparency and protecting the innocent. Racial bias. The painful truth is that Black men, especially those with cognitive disabilities, are disproportionately targeted, interrogated, and convicted. In America, justice is not always blind, and for Black men, the scales are often tipped against them from the start, a systemic issue rooted in historical prejudices that still taint our justice system today. Lack of resources for indigent defense. Imagine your life hanging in the balance, and your only defense is an attorney burdened with hundreds of cases with limited time and resources. This creates a two-tiered justice system, one for the rich who can afford robust defense, and one for everyone else, leaving the poor and marginalized tragically vulnerable. Resistance to DNA testing. The fact that it took decades to get DNA testing on a crucial piece of evidence speaks volumes about systemic inertia. Institutions are often reluctant to admit mistakes, making it an uphill battle for advocates like Maya Anderson to revisit old cases even with compelling new evidence. This resistance prolongs suffering and allows true perpetrators to remain free. A wrongful conviction isn't a singular event. It's a seismic tremor that devastates families, shatters communities, and most chillingly, allows the real perpetrator to walk free, often to harm again, creating a horrifying ripple effect of unchecked crime. But from this darkness, profound lessons emerge. The human spirit's capacity for resilience, even forgiveness in the face of unimaginable injustice, is nothing short of miraculous. It's a testament to the power of the inner self to endure. It also underscores the critical role of advocacy. Never underestimate the power of a single voice, or a collective one, in demanding change. Maya Anderson wasn't just a lawyer. She was a beacon of hope, a relentless force against an immovable system. Perhaps the greatest lesson from this saga for all of us is to cultivate healthy skepticism. Question narratives, especially when they feel too simple or convenient. Demand proof. And learn to listen to the whispers of doubt, for they often lead to the truth. Today, Jerome and David are slowly, painstakingly rebuilding their lives. They carry the weight of the past, but also the light of their extraordinary resilience. Their journey reminds us that healing is a process and justice a continuous fight. Their echoes of injustice should awaken something within all of us. They are not just victims. They are teachers, showing us where our humanity and our justice still falls short. What will be the legacy of Jerome and David Jenkins? Will it simply be a tragic footnote in history, or a powerful anthem for change, demanding a justice system truly blind, truly equal, and truly just for all? The symphony of justice remains unfinished. It is up to each of us to ensure that its final notes sing not of echoes of injustice, but of truth, equity, and a future where no one's life is stolen by the flaws of the system. Their voices, once silenced, now echo with a powerful message. It's a message for all of us. Because the truth is, wrongful convictions aren't just statistics. They're stolen lives, shattered families, and a profound stain on our collective conscience. So what can you do to make a difference? First, share this story. Hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and send this video to someone who needs to hear it. Let's make sure JJ and David's echoes of injustice are heard far and wide. Second, educate yourself. Learn more about the systemic issues we discussed today: false confessions, racial bias, and the urgent need for criminal justice reform. Knowledge is power, and it's the first step towards change. And third, consider supporting organizations like the Innocence Project. They're on the front lines using DNA science and dedicated legal work to free the wrongly convicted and prevent future injustices. Every dollar helps them continue their vital work. The symphony of justice remains unfinished. It's up to each of us to ensure its final notes sing not of echoes of injustice, but of truth, equity, and a future where no one's life is stolen by the flaws of the system. Thank you for listening. Your voice, your empathy, and your action truly matter.